So I could come in, for example, I took a copy of the default page. I just removed the sidebar. Now I want to make my content stretch across. Well, I can see here that the default page is using the narrow column class. So I could come here, for example, and just say I'm going to create another class called narrow column 1 or anything I want, and save that. And then go to Style CSS and find my narrow column, styling for narrow column, and then I'll just create a copy of that, call it narrow column 1, and then come down and increase the width. We'll say 650 pixels instead of the 450 that was there, and save, and come back, and now look, and now I have my text stretching on across the page into where the sidebar was. So I'm getting closer to what I want. Here on a normal page again, I have my sidebar. On Cool Websites, I have my text stretching across. Still a couple things I might want to clean up, and what you do here will again depend on what was in the template that you copied. It will depend on the theme you're using. All themes are going to be set up differently. But here a couple problems I'm running into is I have that dark background where the sidebar was, the background for the sidebar. And I also don't have an intuitive way for a person to get back to the home page now, unless an individual just knows that on most blogs, if you click on the header, it takes you to the home page. There's nothing there really intuitive to get them back to the home page. So let's tackle those two things, and then I'll wrap up the tutorial. So here, Cool Websites, let's look at getting this off first. Now that on the Kubrick theme is a little more difficult. If you look in the header PHP file, that's where that background is actually being called for the background to the sidebar. And the background is called based on the text direction that your blog is set up to have. So there's this little if statement here, and it checks to see whether a sidebar is needed. So without getting into all of this, I'm sure there's a way that I could go in here and change this to check to see if that new template page I just created was being used, and then not display the background to the sidebar. But you know, I don't really like this background anyway. Even when I'm on the home page, it doesn't really do a lot for me. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to remove it all together just to make it easy. I could do it a few ways, but maybe the easiest way to do it is just to take this if-else statement here and make both conditions the same. The actual Kubrick BGY JPEG is the image without that shaded background for the sidebar. So I could come up here and just make this first condition the same as the second condition there, so there's no difference. So now that will actually take the blog, and no matter what page I'm on now, it removes that gray background. If I go to Cool Websites now, I have my text stretching across the width of the page, and I don't have that background. Now of course it does again remove that from all. So if you still wanted that on pages that have a sidebar but not on the others, then you would need to go to your header file here and figure out how to edit this if statement to recognize that. And if someone knows how to do that easily, you leave a comment here, that'd be great. But I don't know how to easily do that off the top of my head, and I'm not going to dig through everything to try to find it out right now. So the last thing that we'll look at here then is that once a person clicks on this page and they don't have the sidebar, then there's no real intuitive way to get back home. Of course, you always have clicking of header. I might want to put a navigation link at the top of this page on the template that just says home or something like that. So I can easily do that in the template by going back to my page with no sidebar template. Now directly after the information that calls the style sheet, I'm going to put in just some basic HTML to put a home link. So here it's just an href, and I'm calling the home URL to the blog, and it's just called home. I could even come here and say back home or whatever, and click save. Then on any page that uses that template, you'll have a back home link at the top, so a person could click and go back to the home page of your blog. On other pages that don't use that template, you don't have it. Now of course if you wanted it, you could go into your normal page template and add it. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But hopefully this provides you some basics into how to create a page template. and you can create dozens of them in your WordPress blog. You're not limited to just having one. So if you wanted, you could go back in here and create several different page templates to use for your various pages. And then all you would need to do is, whenever you create a page in WordPress, or you could go back and edit pages you've already created, is that you select the page template that you want to use for your particular page.